Josh, the race is set. Walk us through the next month or so, the key dates for you and the team.
Thank you for leaving the couch stuff where it is, John. I appreciate that. This next week is going to be just a sort of blitz of all those 7 battlegrounds that Kamala Harris wants to visit with Tim Walz. I think one thing to understand here is, like, her map is a lot different. Biden had a pretty clear path through the northern battlegrounds. Harris, it's just not so clear. And so either this is sort of a rising tide lifts all boats, where suddenly she'll find herself competitive in all 7, or she needs to find different paths. And it's just not clear where it's going to be. Though last night was the first one in Philadelphia. I was there. Governor Shapiro, who of course was a finalist but was passed over for Governor Walz to be the running mate, was there, gave a pretty rousing speech to introduce her, no sour grapes factor, but found the need to say that he's proud of his faith. And that just gives you a hint of some of the wrangling that's happened in the Democratic Party leading up to her selection yesterday, with questions whether Shapiro being Jewish would make him vulnerable to attacks, that he was too pro-Israel or whatnot. So this has been a fraught one, but the reaction we saw yesterday from across the Democratic coalition, from AOC to Joe Manchin, supporting Tim Walz, I think made him the sort of do no harm pick, and that seems what Kamala Harris is looking like. So we'll get that 1-week tour. Whether Joe Biden hits the campaign trail remains an open question. There's some reporting that they're kicking tires on that. But of course, all this is heading up to that convention later this month in Chicago, which will really be a coronation. This momentum, you'd expect, will continue to carry Harris in the polls. But right now, it's looking like a coin flip race, John.
So, Josh, what we have right now is kind of these big moments for her. Rallies, she's going to be at the DNC, this coronation you speak about. She's going to be on teleprompter. 2 questions. When is she sitting down for an interview so we kind of understand her policy and how she differentiates herself from Biden? And will there be a debate?
Those are great questions. She's not sat down, as you know, for a wide-ranging interview since becoming the nominee. She gaggles occasionally, which is to say, bats around a couple of questions under the wing of the airplane. They haven't said. They haven't got there. And they're not going to be able to keep her sort of hidden away as part of it, or in these sort of forward speeches that don't have any question and answer, or at least I don't think they'll be able to do that. So we'll see where it goes. Certainly, J.D. Vance in particular is getting out there doing a lot more press stuff. I think we'll see that with Tim Walz as well. As for the debate, right now they're in a standoff. I should say Harris and Trump are in a standoff. Trump is doing that early September 4th, if memory serves, Fox debate that he unilaterally sort of ginned up and said, Harris got to meet me there or nothing. Harris laughed that off, said, forget about it. I'm going to the September 10th ABC debate, the one that Biden and Trump and potentially RFK had agreed to, ages ago. Trump says he now won't do that, sort of this fig leaf of saying he agreed to it with Biden, which isn't really true, but was during the era of Biden. So this back and forth, these silly games. It looks like right now Trump doesn't want to debate Harris, and Harris doesn't want to go to Fox. So if Trump is digging in and saying Fox or nothing, it doesn't look like we'll have a debate, at least for now. The vice presidents, on the other hand, are another story. Both Vance and Walz are chomping at the bit to debate each other, I suspect, unless one of their top-of-the-ticket colleagues says no, that those two will be unleashed against each other at least once. They seem to be, happy for it. Republicans are almost as delighted with the pick of Governor Walz as Democrats. They think that they can go after him on certain issues. It's not just because they thought that Governor Shapiro would, almost take Pennsylvania out of play. They definitely were worried about Shapiro being the pick, but Governor Walz, they see some paths to sort of drive a wedge between Democrats and swing voters.
How do you see that shaping up, Josh? As Anne-Marie mentioned earlier in the show, 70% of the electorate just don't know who he is or what he's about. Yeah. How does that look like, the race to define Walz?
I think the compressed timeline for Harris is probably helping her a little bit, right? Harris is not someone who's played error-free ball for 3.5 years. She kind of gives wonky speeches sometimes, but she's played pretty error-free ball in the last couple of weeks, and so this could help. And the same with Walz, if they can get him out there as they're going to do in the next 7 days, they will try to define him before Republicans can define him. In Congress, he had a very down-the-middle voting record. As governor, he's been more progressive. Progressives backed him as these sweepstakes were carrying out, in part because he was just sort of the most progressive option of a list of folks that weren't all that progressive. So to say that he's like a far-left radical, I don't think that will necessarily hold all that much water, but he is admired by progressives, so we'll see where that goes. But last night I was there in Philadelphia. With all due respect to President Biden, the energy levels are they're just not comparable. I mean, Democrats are just in a much different place where they are. There were thousands of people there. They were jazzed. This is just totally different than 3 weeks ago.